red side. So the big question is, with Rise clogging up a ban slot, who emerges as kind of this priority pick on blue?
Indeed. And do they leave the Kalista up here? KT have been getting that Kalista quite a bit on the red side by leaving Gragas up or something like that. Looks like no Victor once again. He's just been blanket banned for Kuro ever since he was reactivated on the tournament realm. Lots of AD bans. Do they go for the Vayne again, or do they risk Arrow picking it up? They will actually ban Kalista on the blue side.
KOO just opting into kind of a fractured AD carry pool. Maybe just thinking that Arrow, after kind of the first couple of picks, just doesn't necessarily have much to offer. Will they actually go so far as to ban Vayne as a third AD ban?
They have that flexibility right now. Last time it was Sivir, Vayne, and Evelynn for them. They want the Evelynn still up. Score really not showing up hardly at all in that last game. Alistair taken away. Remember that Gorilla does have that 100% win rate on that champion, and he certainly made plays around the map in the last game.
He did. So we're waiting to see, do you just ban out the Vayne and just think it's going to be a first rotation? No, they actually go a different route and ban away the LeBlanc. A lot of priority picks available. There's a lot of potential bans as well. No jungle bans so far. Again, only AD carries mids and the one support in Alistair. Can you leave up the Rise? Do you give Smeb a champion like Rise who does have this carry potential? And the answer is no.
No, I think you get rid of the Rise right there. Gragas first pick. Ooh, the Tigers. A little bit of troll hovering with the Draven right there. They're taking a little jab at Arrow after his Draven hover in the last game. Gragas, of course, Wisdom's jungler of choice, as can be said of many players, but in particular, he really likes that one. Do you take it? Eve is up this time. Lots of Eve bans against Score recently. And they're just going to go ahead and first pick that Corki. So KOO really returning to their roots from the spring season. They know Prey's great at Corki, so keep playing Corki.
Of all the questions we kind of expected to be answered in pick and bans between these two teams, I don't think we were thinking about AD carry champion pools that would be specifically targeted, but that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to move Arrow away from comfort. They're going to give up a lot of power. Again, we've mentioned this. In solo queue, Score has been favoring the Warrior into Trinity Force, and okay, the damage-centric build, not necessarily as adaptive to competitive play, but Clearlove, obviously from EDG, likes to make it happen when he can. There's that flexibility, and in general, you have to hope that being invisible on the map on Evelynn is more to your strategic benefit than being invisible on the map like Nunu, like Score was last game.
Gragas actually dropping surprisingly far down in the draft this time. And this is so weird. It just harkens back to the KOO Tigers run in spring when teams like KOO and teams like SKT were first picking Corki during these games. Just the priority of that pick skyrocketed to first pick on blue side. I'm not sure it's worth it still in this meta, but as long as you can hit those timings, it is a very good way to snowball a large gold lead off of an outer ring of turrets. And they've got the Gragas, too, to disengage, to just knock people off the turrets. They're just going to go for exactly the same damn thing.
And I was just about to say that, of course, having such a high magic damage AD carry opens them up for an AD mid laner. With Zed exiting the meta, Varus has certainly come into it. And someday, he's already locked in the Rumble, so probably not going to get top lane Fizz. I like the idea of it against double AD, but no space for it here.
And the Tigers are going to have to mix it up a bit. They're going to have to take something this game that isn't Rumble, that isn't Alistair, so they don't have as much backline threat without that equalizer, and they don't have quite the same tower dive capabilities without the Alistair to actually follow up on their poke. So Ahri against the dashless Varus in the mid lane may be the choice. That is very interesting too. The Ezreal pick coming back once again for Arrow. Yeah, do it, Arrow.
I mean, I want to see the Draven as well, and he does. He locks it in. All right, so they'd already shown they're not going to have a lot of backline threat, at least in their first 3 picks. Do KOO Tigers kind of stick to their guns? They're very strong at playing these objective focus comps that don't have the Hecarim dive potentially, but there's the potential, of course, that Smeb could go Nara and just go God mode in the backline.
Right, that's true if they want that engagement. KT much better suited to dealing with it this game. They have Evelynn flank, they have the equalizer to get in the backline and engage off of the slow. They have a really good single target damage potential from Ahri and Draven and a good way to initiate these team fights. So KT having a lot more options. The question is, do you go for Annie? And that is the Karma that we have seen reworked a bit recently.
Support Karma is going to definitely be the way forward. So the poke between Corki and Karma. Now's the point where if you're on KT, like, where's my page with magic resist runes for the bot lane? Because you're going to need it against the intense magic damage poke in lane. And returning to the Riven that he's already seen success on here is Smep.
And that is such a good way to execute with the Wind Slash after everyone is already low on poke. Is it a risky composition? Is it hard to run? Is it fragile? Absolutely. But if it can work, it will absolutely destroy the enemy, and I think Fixer is very wise to take the Braum here.
Yeah, return to that pocket pick Braum. You have to think this game is going to be decided by the top lane. To be honest, it was last game as it evolved after the big, bloody 5 kills early in the game. But now you've got the jungle top duos of Rumble and Evelynn against Riven and Gragas. So if Riven's able to overextend even against the invisible Eve, get kill pressure, at least kill threat onto Rumble, force him behind, I think it's worth the gamble for KOO. But you have to think both teams really going to be focusing around what is a tenuous matchup between Riven and Rumble.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how well this Karma, after some of these changes, goes through, because she's able to get that mantra pretty significantly sooner now, so her R has a lot more uptime based on some of these changes. She's gotten some new AP ratios. Not really going to be a big deal in the support position, but every little bit helps.
The big thing that's changed for her is that her only true damaging spell is her Q. Still hits super hard in the early game, but no AoE damage coming through from the shield anymore. Means that you're pigeonholed more into the utility. She has a lot of it. It's just, man, you're really focusing on poke. You got Riven. So you got Riven in the top lane, obviously as more of a 1v1 threat, maybe a split push threat, but that Siege, Varus, Corki, Karma is crazy.
Yeah, and that shield on a Riven could absolutely be massive. It is a really, really big shield, and being able to keep that Riven through a full combo could be pretty impressive in this top lane. So eyes on Smeb again. He does have a top lane Riven win this season. He is going to be great at cleaning up after the poke, so let's get into this game. Very exciting draft phase. Execution heavy. Who can pull it off? Here we go. Game 2 between the KOO Tigers and KT Rolster. KOO taking that very convincing victory in game number 1, and now KT mixing it up, committing to that Draven. We saw it last season from Arrow. It's pretty bad, but he is a Draven player. He is one of those guys, and we've seen it work really well at other times. Here we go, a little bit of an ambush being set up by KT.
Definitely feels like a bit of a backhanded compliment to call someone a Draven specialist. They're going to be spotted out here. Both teams tenuous. KT have the vision, the information advantage for sure, but they just choose to back away.
They do. So they saw lots of people up in that tri-brush, but KOO wisely deciding not to commit to walking into that side of the jungle for the deep wards. They would have found themselves in a pretty bad ambush situation, and all that AoE coming in from KT, that is probably not a level 1 that KOO really wants to fight. And here we go. Are we going to have those standard lanes? Looks like no. Lane swap will be coming in. Arrow and Fixer moving towards the top side of the map. Smeb planning on starting a camp here in the jungle.
To me, Riven is the big question mark. I think that's always the case in competitive play because, of course, we've all faced those oppressive Rivens in solo queue that take over games. That can happen also in competitive play. But to me, this KOO lineup still has the same core as in Game 1. Still very much poke-focused. The turret-taking abilities of Varus and Corki with all the poke and disengage of Gragas and Karma is very, very powerful. The big difference is that they have this split pusher. They have Riven who's going to itemize almost purely for damage. And then you engineer a situation where in the late game, who's going to split push against this Riven? Because Rumble in general cannot stand toe-to-toe to a late game Riven stacking armor penetration.
And here we go. Fixer and Smeb going toe-to-toe over a Wolf right here. Looks like Fixer actually going to take that, so Smeb will not be hitting level 2 off of that objective. Instead, he's just going to join Wisdom over here and take this small one instead. Get his level 2 that way. A little bit of taxing from the jungler from Smeb, as we're going to go on a bit of a jungle top lane follow here from both teams.
The 2v2 at level 2 is massively in the advantage of KOO. Of course, as you can see on this minimap, not likely to find each other, but very happy to play assertively, playing around their duo lanes in this particular situation. And this is just very standard lane swap play. Smeb isn't being punished for the fact that he's just sitting on a Doran.
Well, this isn't standard lane swap play when we see some proxying this early on. A little bit of a fast push right here, actually. 4 people showing themselves on the bottom side before the recall. And KT going to respond by taking a look at this blue buff, but other than that, KT remaining invisible on the map. And now a recall, actually, from Praise Corki. They want this 2v2 versus the Draven. Now that they've got this lane bully and Karma, they drew him into this trap. You got to wonder, KOO flashing over that Draven in the champion select, kind of baiting it out of Arrow perhaps, and they're going to see the ward fall as well as them doing the Gromp over the wall, and they've got to get out of their score. A little bit too low to be dealing with that.
And with all these movements, Smeb going super aggressive, but score actually 3 buffs Wisdom with the pathing that they did. It seems like they just were surprised that KT started on the weaker side and now are stuck with just the single buff.
Indeed they are. Well, Smeb be confident in lane against Arrow as long as Gorilla's there, and it's like actually the Corki going back down to the bottom side. So they still have that nice long-range harassment. Of course, we all know how much damage that empowered Q can do.
Smeb actually has used all his dashes, and Evelyn is here. We're seeing the damage trades. Arrow does a lot of damage early, and Smeb is going to fall. It's the first blood. Just overextended at the wrong time. Had used all 3 charges of the broken wings and died.
They really tried hard to give Arrow that kill. Arrow even flashing for it, but unfortunately, Riven shield for Arrow doesn't allow him to really cash in on a lot of those stacks. So Arrow still looking for that big Draven play here as Smeb just TP back up to the top side. Didn't lose too much of that, but Arrow starting off with an assist, and Score goes back and starts working on that Warrior enchantment. We'll see what other plays he can make on the map, but that's about, I mean, that's a very good situation. Slow that Riven down, because a slowed down Riven doesn't do a whole hell of a lot.
I mean, the interesting thing about the duo lane that we've evolved into, which of course Smeb on the Riven with Gorilla, is that Karma still, even though she's had her values adjusted, is very, very powerful in terms of lane presence. A lot like Corki, actually, in terms of the laning phase. So it makes up for the fact that it's a melee versus ranged matchup. It could have opened up basically free farm for Smeb, but giving away the first blood kind of throws a spanner in the works. But whatever farm they can get onto Riven to accelerate that point where no one on this KT side can split push against him is what the KOO are trying to engineer in the early game.
Yeah, and I'm just so curious, because one of the things about Karma support traditionally has been that you have this really strong laning phase with this really steep fall off. But now that the mantra, the empowered abilities, are going to be up more frequently based on the increased cooldown reduction from her passive, how much more of an effect is that going to have? Plus, these shields can't be underestimated. Some of these shields are up there at a 400 HP at max level right now, so that adds such a buffer onto someone's HP bar that Gorilla could be looking at a stronger late game, and I'm just curious to see how this Karma pans out someday, playing cautiously.
I guess to me the interesting fact is, you mentioned during the champ select and the loading, Riven diving the backline with the extra shield for just that more chance of bursting down the fairly immovable Draven. Think about the other scenario, the poke wars with Varus and Corki. Suddenly, Gragas disengage, Karma has disengage, and an AoE speed buff. This strong disengage, strong dive. I do think this is a Karma comp that makes a lot of sense, at least on paper. I
like it. And Someday not able to clear this wave right now. Not yet level 6, no equalizer. So they're going to end up taking quite a bit of damage on that turret. Score eating some Karma Qs.
Not even an empowered one, getting chunked down. Keeping Evelyn accountable like this, suddenly you know exactly where she is in the map. Other lanes like the Riven can overextend, of course in this case, not in a 1v1 matchup, but the more accountable you can make an Evelyn, the happier and more aggressive your other lanes are able to play.
Taking a look at that mantra right there, or the E rather. So of course Q-Max first just for that harassment. And now Score just returning to lane to heal up just a tad, and Arrow looking to get into that 2v2, but this means they have to have Someday on the top side, and in spite of Smeb's death, he has actually been very successful in picking up farm, and a lot of that is because Gorilla's been playing both sides of the map so well. We talk about Gorilla in those last couple of games. He has been in top lane when he's needed to be in top lane, in bottom lane when he's needed to be on the bottom lane, denying or diving those laners and being such an absolute monster on the map so far this series.
His roaming plays, as you mentioned, he's packed up and left prey far, far earlier than Fixer ever has, and Fixer's now on the Braum. Even though it doesn't have a strong laning phase, at least feels like he has to fight around Draven until Draven's flash is available, frees up Karma, just be a nuisance wherever she goes.
I have to say, I do like the Braum here, at least in lane, for blocking some of these projectiles from Corki and Karma, though. At least you have that, preventing the Draven from taking too terribly much damage.
And as you mentioned, the Phosphorus Bomb has such a slow travel time that you
Very
basically
easy.
100% of the time to shield that ability, allows you to position more aggressively. Suddenly, Draven's trades, which are always his strong point, they're basically unsustainable for Prey because the Phosphorus Bomb will be bought. Actually misses it there. So just, Fixer, come on, mate. Just a little bit better than that. Because it's such a wide skill shot that honestly, you just throw your shield in the general direction and you should block it.
Yeah, indeed. Well, here comes Someday into the jungle right now. Just getting a ward down on that blue buff, seeing the transfer over to this Varus. And the thing for KT is, can they survive the power spike? Because they are going to be really well set up to pump out damage in the late game. They may want to go for a dive right now. Eve slinking through the jungle.
Some blue pings do come through. They know what's up, but they're honestly afraid of the pick power of level 6+ on both Eve and the Ahri.
Well, there's a big danger here. They are going to
not spotted.
Not spot score. Gorilla walking towards that brush, and they know it's coming now. Speed up from the Orb of Deception, and they have to back out. Pink Ward a little bit wasted right there. Dropping it in the brush, and that'll be the end of the attempt on the dive. Good reaction from Wisdom and Kuro. Cautious, yet still there on time to catch the wave.
There was a potential that KOO would pull the trigger if they could get a flank engage from Riven. If she doesn't have to use her mobility, which is also the source of most of her damage, to get on top of the Draven, there was a team fight there that potentially KOO could win, but they had no aggressive lane wards. Backed away, which they were happy to do, given that KT were the ones that initiated the aggression. We just returned to standard lanes.
Yeah, I think that caution well warranted, though. Your jungle is black right there, and that pick pressure from Nagne, especially considering he doesn't have a tier. He's got those combat stats. He has an ignite. Very threatening. Smeb still hanging in there, though. Score wants to find an opportunity in top. Wisdom's there to back Smeb up, though, and I'm not sure you're really going to be able to do much with this. Look again, Gorilla already there. He's been so on top of Score's map movements this game. Fixer wants a piece of the pie.
Fixer has the Moby Boots advantage and still is going to be by far second to this lane. Smeb smells a rat. He's already been punished once. He expects to get plenty of attention from Score. It's looking like a 6+ member fight on top. We're just waiting for someone to take the bait.
Yeah, this is going to be dangerous. Who's going to get the engage right here? Both top laners playing coy right now. No one telegraphing. Braum is there as the backup. And I think it's probably going to go the way of KT if this team fight busts out. Here we go. Someday takes some trade damage. His heat is very high, though. And he's going to get under the turret, and we may see them back off. No play to be made. Ahri's been out of mid lane for a long time, too, so they are aware that Nagne's roam is a major threat. Still there, though. This is a big commitment from both teams. They should know Fixer's up there. Oh, this is so close. Score's there. There we go. Flash body slam. There's it. Can Someday get his ult off? No. Overheats immediately. Score on the run. Score just gonna die. As Someday, the heat management working in KOO's favor. KOO makes the play before he can come back and answer.
And Someday smartly flashed over the wind slash, but at the same time, as you mentioned, used all his abilities basically in a panic. Overheated and wasn't able to contribute to the fight. Score dies for free. Still has his flash up, so potentially can make some plays. But yeah, KT misfire on that particular engage, and KOO aren't done.
Coming back around, Gorilla still here. Fixer shows up, though. He's going to heal up Someday using that relic shield. And that'll be that, looks like, for the moment. Still no big items onto Smeb, so the fact that he's able to pick up that kill should help him quite a bit. He works towards the Hex Drinker. Nagne's roams just haven't been able to find targets yet. And Arrow and Prey in that farm lane. Arrow looking for the payday off of those Draven stacks as he goes for that Bloodthirster first. Looks like we're seeing pretty standard builds here. Overall, someday going to that Haunting Guise. And Arrow just snag the crab.
So with all this play around top, you might say, okay, but mid lane's been isolated between the lane swap and then just all the play around top. That isolated matchup, Varus versus Ahri, sounds on paper like definitely an Ahri assassination lane where she has 100-0 potential, but KOO hasn't been troubled whatsoever. Equal on CS against an Evelynn who's actually been quite predictable in her movements given that she's been envisioned so much. You'd expect Ahri to be, what, 20 CS up at minimum in this matchup, but it's been a farm lane.
But Score has also been roaming into the side lanes. They haven't really exerted the kill pressure onto the Varus in this lane. Nagne's been trying to follow up on Score's map movement, so we just don't see the ganks in the mid lane that we might expect to, considering that, like you're saying, we do have this Evelynn and Ahri combination that, in theory, should have a lot of kill pressure on a KOO.
Just giving KOO a free farm. Definitely the time to gank Varus is pre-9, his Q getting on such a short cooldown that he can balance poke with almost instant wave clear. And now we're at the stage where, honestly, one rotation of auto attacks, a Q and an E, and the minion wave's gone. He never actually has to get into charm range. And the free farm will continue for Varus, which is better than expected when you're just looking at this Varus versus Ahri matchup.
And the warding here on the top side of the map just so thorough. Okay,
wow.
Gonna take goodbye.
Score's presence on Evelynn, a bit like his presence on Nunu, just invisible.
Yeah, and he just hasn't been able to do much this game, but Nagne really got caught out there. Great hit on the Chain of Corruption. Following up onto Nagne using the flash as well, but Nagne very low and playing aggressively. Good reaction from KOO. KOO just so dominant in these games on the Varus.
And engineering a solo kill in a difficult matchup. Arrow takes a lot of pokes. Score once again is here. But KOO, they're not interested in taking the bait. Whenever Evelynn has been in position for aggression, it's been snuffed out by KOO. And with all their disengage, whether it's the Karma, whether it's Gragas when he's involved in this duel, they've just never been able to get the big Agony's embrace that Score's been looking for.
Well, I think they're just playing very well and very cautiously around the fact that this Draven could have the Evelynn there. Prey and Gorilla, a lot of respect given to Score's positioning on the map. And the same thing really true of Smeb outside of that first gank. They weren't able to make the second follow-up play work on the top side. They're going to give away a blue buff right now. Now, KT is still definitely in this. They are not too far behind. And the problem with KOO's composition is that once the tankiness comes in from KT on some of these champions, that they just are going to lack damage. The mobility also from Ahri going to be problematic. And here goes KT after the Dragon when they see Wisdom up on the top side.
Their big boon, as I mentioned a couple of times, is this Riven split push, though. That is something that Rumble just really isn't going to be able to itemize into a build that will allow him to duel against Riven. It's not what Rumble does. He's not a duelist. He's a big team fighter. So Smeb's already engineered a 30 CS advantage. Would have expected something like that for the Ahri, but actually 10 CS behind and now a death. The power spikes are a kind of thing, and let's return to the Evelynn pick. It's something that you and I have talked about, Monte Cristo. How strong is Evelynn after her early clear was improved? She's strong, she does have those intangibles, but when teams play so smartly around them, although here we go, looking to see the solo kill.
And there's the follow-up. Nagne gonna fall, but so will KOO to the Ignite. And that missed CC causing a few problems, but they do manage to get Smeb's TP out. That will give them teleport advantage, and this could be the window of opportunity that KT actually needs to snowball the Draven. If used properly by KT, this could be absolutely huge right there. Trading 1-for-1 in the mid lane, definitely not the end of the world for them, but forcing out Smeb's TP simultaneously, that is a big edge.
And Draven goes back for a shot, rushes the Infinity Edge. We've seen a lot of bloodthirst to Draven when we've seen it from the likes of Crystal, just focusing on the sustain. Obviously going to have massive crit axe potential now. 167 CS means we're going to be talking about an intense cash-in. So honestly, now we're almost in a side game of can Draven pick up this kill and cash in what looks like it's going to be, what, a straight static shiv if you start adding up all these axe catches.
Yeah, this is a very perilous moment for the KOO Tigers. Yes, they may have that lead, but Arrow has been just farming for the last 18 minutes of this game, getting a huge number of adoration stacks, and they're looking to deliver on it right now. Someday was in that bottom side. He still has the TP, seeing if he could make a play while the wave was pushing up. He's very scared about being caught too far away from his turret against this Riven. Now Smeb wants to show up in the bottom side. They smell what's going on right now.
If you look at the power spikes they're hitting, Sorcerer's Shoes, Trinity Force, you think, okay, they're going to start to want to poke and group, but you mentioned very astutely, you can't do that when Smeb doesn't have teleport. So the best way to do it, just rush bottom, force a defensive teleport from this Rumble, because they cannot play their rotational style unless they group early, because they have to wait out that teleport timer.
Yeah, it's giving KT some more time, though, and that's the thing, is that the Tigers are reliant on this power spike that's coming in the next 10 minutes or so, and that's their big time to win this game. It's great for them that they have this edge early.
Tiamat into the Hex Drinker already completed. We're seeing a fight though. Fixer able to disengage with the ultimate. They're trying to make something happen when Smeb. His channel is back a few times now. Massive heaped minion wave. He's going to be pressured into it, but they will pick up this turret. So Trinity Force Corki picks up the objective they're looking for, 2-0 in turrets. Don't know if they can engineer a mid turret though before this teleport's available from Smeb.
Yeah, but here we go. That was 2 summoners burned by KT on the disengage, so underestimating rather their ability to trade in that situation, and they can't keep the Tigers off the turret either. Smeb will return to pick up this accumulated minion wave and keep his 30 CS advantage on a roll. Of course, has the Tiamat now.
Wasn't even able to buy any way back into this lane in terms of CS, as you mentioned, so almost no cost for picking up that turret despite having the summoner disadvantage. So excellent rotation from KOO. You're expecting multiple members in mid, though Varus had to go back and shop this last outer turret. Again, Riven flanks, just like Ryze flanks, they're not quite what you expect. They're not quite the Shyvana or Hekarims of the world. But if you get in melee range of this Draven with the ultimate active, you will assassinate the Draven.
And yeah, especially without any kind of overshield from that Bloodthirster as well, going for that damage, but not necessarily the safest bet against the poke coming in and the assassination potential from the Tigers. KT, though, one advantage that they have is that they have that first dragon, which means that KOO can't really run this game out on a particularly short timer. So it was actually very beneficial that they were able to grab that one while they're looking to probably hold out for a little while and wait out the timing window that KOO is trying to go for. And they're just playing conservatively, but you know, one thing KOO has done, again, Gorilla and Smeb have been covering their team's pushes and their team's pressure so well in the last couple of games. It's been offering quite a few options right there. And
here comes the poke.
Here we go, the 5-man group, no surprise at this time. They're going to try and get a flank with score. No pink wards on the flanks, actually. This could be good for KT.
Waiting to see what happens. They're waiting for KOO to overextend for maybe the next minion wave.
They haven't seen score.
Trying to think something's afoot. Obviously expecting the score flank, but this turret is going to probably go down on maybe the next minion wave. So score level 11, the Agony's Embrace, going to be a significant shield. KOO are grouped up.
Score's on the wrong side. Wisdom is actually zoning him out right now just by standing in the river brush. And that's going to keep the poke on right now. This is great formation. The Karma, the Gragas. Are they going to go for it, though? Chain of Corruption, there's the Agony's Embrace. Not a great one, but there we go. Some damage coming through. Whirling Death takes down Gorilla. He gets the cash in on the Adoration stack, so Arrow getting something in return for that turret going down. They're still sieging, and it looks like they may back off.
This power of this Draven will be the big X factor. Look at that, 1670 gold. Opened up a casual 1,000 gold lead, and only 300 gold. That's going to be the the kill that he's picked up. But continuing the siege, though, KT have to
equalizer. It's like that's not going to go down someday. Taking a few hits, but they do repel the siege before a Tier 2 falls. So still a 3,000 gold lead for the KOO Tigers when the dust settles, but only one turret, and at least they got something for it. Nagne wants Kuro.
Use the charm, goes wide. So does the Chains of Corruption. Both skill shots missing, but in the meantime, Dragon picked up by KOO. Not going to be a re-engage here. One thing I want to say, though, about the turret damage that came through from KOO, you can see that if you don't stagger these recalls expertly here, KT, there's so much window for very big bursts of damage to come into those objectives. That's what they've picked for, and they have to be aware of that when they start to back off and buy items.
Yeah, and the commitment that KT needs to do as well in this particular situation. They can't just mill around and get poked. They have to find those angles. But in that mid lane siege, KOO did such a good job. They didn't have the pink wards on their flanks, but what did they do? They put Gorilla on one side of the river in the brush and Wisdom on the other side, and let that three-man core just kind of sit there in the mid lane while they defended the flanks, made sure that that engage wasn't coming through. And that's why Score got such a lackluster Evelyn ultimate, was because he couldn't find the right angle. Great setup.
It's the laning support strategy of only having one ward from your trinket, so you human ward, Chains of Corruption, big burst damage, and just assassinated by Kuro on the Vayne. That's an Ahri assassinated by Vayne.
Smeb isn't here. They can force this fight if they want to, but KT playing very passively as their turrets fall here. Charge up the mid lane continuing. They're going to get some damage down onto this inhib turret.
And the thing is, Riven's actually showing on wards, so they know that Riven's not engaged, but with one of their main pick engage tools in Nagne's Ahri dead, little recourse for them, and the push continues. Now they're starting to lose buffs. This is feeling very reminiscent of Game 1, despite the fact that they've picked a comp with a cogent identity with similar power spikes on the KT side. Still, KOO is running this game off the back of the mid lane Varus.
And it's this poke again.
Oh.
That identity that KOO has had. I'm still skeptical, though. Yes, this team is looking a lot better, but it just seems to me that the Tigers have gone back to old tricks instead of actually fixing a lot of the problems that have been plaguing their team since Cinderhulk arrived. They are very good at this style of play, but it doesn't show a great deal of versatility.
With the increase in popularity of Rumble, has basically become a first or second rotation pick. It really opened up another poke game coming out from this KOO lineup. They don't have someone to split push against Smeb. They don't have a super tank that can shrug off the mixed damage poke coming through from Varus and Corki. They do have some pick potential. They do have the Ahri and the Evelyn, but as you mentioned, KOO, so smart around playing against the Evelyn, even without the 100 gold investments of the pink wards. Score, once again, just isn't able to get involved. And it's a low kill score game, which the turret score tells you everything about this game, Monte Cristo, 5-0.
Yeah, and if KT can somehow take out a couple of these towers, they're going to actually right the ship to a certain degree. But like you're saying, Papa, the deal is that Smeb can just push so quickly with this Tiamat on the Riven that how do you maintain that lane pressure at the moment if you're KT? You just don't have very reliable wave clear at the moment. So you're basically, Smeb will walk into a lane, fast push it up to your tier 2, then leave, and it takes you twice as long to push it back to their tier 1 or along that long lane. So there's not really great options for setting up sideways, for manipulating them in a way that KOO can't so easily defend.
And it's one of those situations where the only item Rumble can actually build to push a lane is Abyssal Scepter, and that's not even an option in this particular case. Of course, reducing the magic resist of the lane minions gives them a bit of pushing potential to work against the fact that the Flamesplitter has lower base damage against minions. We're seeing just some milling around the mid lane by KT. I just love the Riven pick, and honestly, I love the identity that KOO's forced. Back in the day, when we used to see Gragas, we talked about Gragas Kha'Zix, where you throw down the explosive cast, isolate members, and get assassinations. In this game, Gragas Riven has the same team fighting potential, so not even having to just split push with Riven and hope for the best, even having team fighting options with the Riven, that's exciting for KOO to put together.
Yeah, I just love that they have a ranged execute on the Riven as well to follow up on the poke. It really does work well in this composition. I am not a Riven fan generally, but I do really appreciate how it works here. Now, here we go. Arrow really not with much to clear these waves yet. Lots of damage, though. And will they be able to stop it? Score finds an angle. There's the equalizer going down. Whirling Death rips through the team. Nagne low. There's an explosive cast. And there is a double kill for KOO with a single piercing arrow lined up by the Gragas ultimate. Well done.
And Smeb just gets to the fight. Wasn't involved whatsoever. Now can just chase away members. Both of these strong turret-taking ADs are almost full health. They're going to need to wait for a minion wave. There's still some minions alive, and they're at least going to get an excellent chunk of damage.
Yeah, there we go. Charging forward right here, KOO. Gonna tank just a little bit, but no problem with the inhibitor turret. They can't go any further with the death timers the way they are right now, but KOO just running through KT, knocking down turrets left and right. And you know, the engage wasn't that bad, but Prey and KOO flash off immediately. They get Nagne, and what a beautiful setup. KOO reacting so well to the trajectory forced on the KT arrows by that Gragas ultimate. And I'm just not convinced by Ahri these days. It's been a long time since I've seen what I think is a truly great Ahri game. Seems like her skill shot's just a little bit too tough to hit right now for most players.
It does seem how it's evolved. Obviously, Faker struggled on the champion yesterday in that one loss against Anarchy for SKT. The Varus 6-1-0, basically untroubled.
I just don't see the upside of Ahri right now because her burst just isn't what it used to be. And if you miss just one of her skill shots, you're toast, pretty much.
I think it's one of those situations where you want to pick an assassin, but Zed's not really available. Even with the Rumble, the Zed makes sense in terms of damage. Score is flanking, but it's going to be spotted by a pink ward.
Oh, they have to go in on this.
Yeah. They have to, but will they get anything from it?
There's a tether. There's the chain of corruption, and there is a very dead Evelynn as a giant bottle of champagne crushes KT's hopes in this game.
Usually something for celebration, but it's definitely only for KOO.
It's a KOO celebration. Works for them.
I mean, this is the last thing I expected from this series. Is it was a convincing 2-0 from KOO, but honestly, unless they make a colossal mistake, it's another game where KT, okay, they haven't picked quite as poorly as in game one, but they're just catching skill shots once again.
Yeah, and not really hitting the engages too. And Nagne in the mid lane, just his lane performance against KOO. KOO, a player that isn't really known as one of the most dominant laners. And to be fair to KOO, though, his solo queue ranking has been climbing pretty dramatically recently. He's been playing a lot more solo queue than he used to, and I think it really is influencing his performance in a lot of these games because his individual performance has been definitely on the rise this season, even against players like Faker. So here we go. KT, after losing 2 inhibitors, will at least get a dragon for their troubles, but that is not going to be a whole lot at this stage of the game. 9K gold down, and with a composition that will easily ride those waves of super minions into the base and start the siege.
It's definitely too early to talk about dragon as a win condition when we're talking about a 48-minute, at best, 5th dragon coming through from KT. If they're literally rushing it down on that 6-minute timer. Not really much upside to talk about KT. That's going to clear up these minion waves, the super minions pushing in. We're waiting to see if they can get exclusive vision around Baron. Can KOO. And let's return to also the fact that Wisdom's played both these games. His win rate hasn't been there. We talked about how he's the early pressure jungler. Suddenly picking early power spike comps, picking Siege, has opened up Wisdom to really play to his strengths. KOO to play to their strengths. It's something different.
Wisdom has had much better late game Gragas ults than we've seen previously, though. He's been really much more judicious and intelligent about how he's using that explosive cast where it was sort of thrown out and problematic previously. Now KOO gonna have a hard time doing this Baron. They just are all so squishy that one equalizer could easily finish them off in this situation if they're not careful. They kind of have to force a poke. Wow, they're just gonna go for it.
They have so much damage. Smeb, of course, not a tank top laner, has a lot of damage himself. This is a potential turnaround point. Scores milling around, hasn't got flash
They're gonna go for it. There's the teleport coming in. Whirling Death not gonna be there for the steal. TP canceled. There's Gorilla flashing forward for the tether. KOO wants it. He lands the chain, and there's the rest of the poke follow through. Score gets demolished as he finds himself straight in the middle of the KOO Tigers composition.
KT were in a bind. They didn't have Flash available in score for even the most opportunistic of steals. Someday couldn't commit because he needs to clear the super minions. So they can bring up a Baron buffed up super minion wave and honestly just try and poke KT out of this series.
Yeah, they're setting up right now. There's not really much that KT can do about this. Pretty much nothing at the moment, actually, unless they hit some insane equalizer. Nagne on the periphery, poking forward. There's Smeb right in the mix with this Riven, chasing everyone back to the fountain as the rest of his team goes through their wrecking ball formation of just destroying these turrets. And now we have the siege onto the Nexus. That's going to be it.
There's nothing they can do, and KOO, with early game power spikes, the Varus Corki in both games placed their win conditions beautifully. KT didn't really have any win conditions in game 1, had some in game 2, but Ahri once again just isn't able to make anything happen. We talked about the fact that Varus versus Ahri just turned into a farm fest. Ahri tried to get her roams off with Evelynn, but Score in both games doing his best Evelynn roleplay and being invisible, not being able to get much done, and a convincing series win for KOO.
Yeah, and I just think that KT were blindsided by this Varus, not something we expect from the KOO Tigers. And also, who would have guessed that